All righty. I'm super excited for today's guest is someone who helps people untangle their thoughts and habits that keep them stuck. So see somebody who is dedicated to helping people improve their mental well-being so they can create real change in their professional and personal lives. I know that mental resilience is a huge factor in success, whether in business and relationships or just everyday life. And I'm super excited to dive into some powerful insights with her today. Dr. Jasmine Smith, welcome.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for taking this call with me. Before we kind of jump in, can you share a little bit about what you do and how you help people?
Yes, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I also have my doctorate in social work and I utilize decolonized lens. So essentially what that means is that I really work to decenter whiteness and really try to create spaces for healing and growth, particularly for clients who experience trauma. That is typically the clients that will seek out my services. And in addition to the clinical work that I do, I'm an adjunct professor, so I teach social work students how to engage in this field, really recognizing what trauma is, how to support it, and how to center marginalized communities. And then additionally, I'm a trainer and presenter in a lot of different ways. I'm working at, the individual, the community, and then the macro level in terms of policy as well.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm sure you've worked with a ton of different individuals, through your business. And what inspired you to kind of start your own practice or dive into this, what you do?
Yeah, I think that it was always something that I had in mind when I thought about joining this field of really wanting to create my own atmosphere or community in this space. But it also came from my advocacy, being in the field and often being the first or the only Black clinician and really seeing some of the injustices or challenges that were faced and really wanting to make sure that the services that I was provided were really tailored to what the clients need rather than what expected or told to them as what they need.
Gotcha. When you first started, what's something that maybe you misunderstood or that most people don't understand about therapy or personal development? Because when you think of therapy, you think of all sorts of different things, especially in today's day and age. So is there anything that you either didn't know going in or you learned as you kind of went through the process?
Yes. So the first thing that I want to say that I think a lot of people misunderstand about therapy is really, well, I could just talk to my friends or I can just, put in a thing to chat GPT now and it'll help me with everything that I need. But therapy is much more than just listening to someone or talking to someone. It's a really proactive space. It's a collaborative space where you really identify currently who you are and who you want to be and working with this person, hopefully in a safe space to be able to do that, where there wouldn't be judgment and there's support along the way. I also think that we're moving more towards openness about therapy because a lot of people sometimes still carry this idea that it's a sign of weakness or failure or, individually or culturally, there may be these ideals of shame and guilt about needing support and help. And I think that we are often able to recognize if my tooth is hurting, I'm going to go to a dentist, something happened to my body, I'm going to go to a doctor, but we don't do that oftentimes with mental health. And we sometimes confuse, which is something that I didn't really know coming into this. We may confuse physiological concerns or somatic experiences with it being a physical thing and not really knowing that it is mental health or emotional challenges that we're dealing with. So really therapy is a space to kind of help you build your life, build your community, build your support.
Got you. And to touch on what you said, what are some signs that people can see as far as either are they physical signs or mental signs that maybe it's kind of where instead of me going and talking to my friends, I think it's getting pretty serious for me to go see a professional to kind of help me deal with what I'm going through. Are there any specific signs that maybe people should kind of look out for?
Yeah, I think that could be, individualized. Everyone has different responses to experiences, but some common things that people may notice is, a reduction in their ability to sleep, whether it's not being able to sleep a full night and not being able to sleep at all, or waking up constantly, just sleep disturbances, issues with appetite. If you're over overeating, undereating, or just like not really being able to take care of yourself nutritionally. Challenges with your social engagement. If you are maybe like falling into this period of wanting to be solely isolated. Now we know like breaks, sometimes separation can be healthy, but if you're completely avoiding and withdrawing from those that you love, those that care about you, that could also be a sign. Fatigue, headache, digestive issues is a big one for people. A lot of times if they're having symptoms, they may go to, I have a cold or a virus, or it could really be stress and some challenges that you have. Another thing is, like I talked about, shame and guilt, which could lead to negative thoughts. And sometimes that could bring up, challenges with your mood and maybe questioning whether or not you even have like the will to live. So just really just taking inventory of yourself and your patterns and behaviors, if there's been any changes. And then physically, if you notice that there's just been a lot going on for you as well, you might want to seek out support.
Got you. So it starts with awareness and being aware of kind of what's going on with your body and understanding like, okay, something isn't right. I think it's time for me to go seek some help. And that makes a lot of sense. In your experience, what are some of the most common blocks as far as mental blocks that kind of keep people from getting from point A to point B, whether it is a situation they're dealing with, and let's say they do talk to somebody, what stops them from essentially getting past that little hurdle that they're dealing with?
I would say that oftentimes I'm hearing concerns about like the fear of failure, not really wanting to fail, especially if you have a lot of pressure on you from family members, friends, your community, or just maybe your own perfectionism. Sometimes we can, be perfectionists and want everything to be perfect. And, we want to, when we finally make our grand gesture, for everything to be right. And then also self-worth, self-doubt, self-esteem, right? The way that we're speaking to ourselves, the way that we're thinking, and maybe because we haven't seen others doing it, we may automatically believe that it's not possible for us as well. So those are some of the barriers that I often see that impact people from being able to make progress or to really, actualize their goals. And what you just said was perfect. And that last moment about awareness. Awareness is probably going to be like a major thing that I'm talking about here today. Because if we really don't acknowledge it and we're not aware of it, we really can't validate it, but also figure out what we can do about it, right? Like identifying what it is helps us to be able to try to strategize, create plans, and then figure out what we need to do to make that progress.
Gotcha. I see. I want to take a step back. And you had mentioned as far as people growing up or going about their day or maybe going through life and maybe looking at something or seeing something that maybe they're not good enough or hearing stuff. Do you think that social media has played a bigger part in kind of the society as far as maybe us seeing all these types of things and us comparing ourselves to other people or so-and-so's life is so good or I should be feeling this way? Do you think that plays a huge part into why therapy is such a big thing nowadays?
Absolutely. Because it's consumed a lot of our time. Often, we're supposed to be doing something and then we end up with doom scrolling, right? Depending on how you create your feed, right? Like that could dictate kind of some of the images, some of the stories, some of the information that is constantly being fed into you. And so if you don't have the right support or have the right frame of, mind at that time, it could really take a toll when you're constantly seeing all these people doing things that maybe you don't feel like you can or you haven't been able to. And I think also just our culture currently, it's a lot easier for us to get fame and for us to have like resources. So constantly seeing other people take off and feeling like, well, I'm putting in the work, but I'm not getting it. It can definitely lead to this ideal of comparison and not feeling good about yourself.
If you were talking to a client and they were having this conversation maybe about, not necessarily about social media, but something along the lines, what's something that people could be doing as far as daily to help either build up a resiliency to kind of blocking out the noise or to just kind of build a strong habit?
There's this concept called the 8 dimensions of wellness. And other ways you could think about it is like your self-care will, right? Really
I'm
thinking
sorry.
about, say that
I'll be
again.
writing this down. We need to cut you off. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yes. So we think about a lot of times self-care being things of like, and I'll just speak for myself when I hear some of my girls, like, oh, I'm going to go get my nails done, or, oh, I'm going to go do this. It's like kind of like these leisure activities, which it could be, but self-care is way beyond that. It's really about a daily practice that you're doing in these various areas of your life to take care of yourself. So like physically, what are you doing to take care of your body? Whether that's exercise, nutrition, sleeping, like I mentioned earlier, emotionally, again, like how are you managing your emotions? How are you giving them space, right? How are you maybe like slowing down so that you're not being so reactive? Socially, what are you doing to build your community? How are you connecting to others, which was a huge thing, especially after COVID, because many of us were isolated because of the shutdown orders, right? And so really, how are you building those connections? And here in LA, that's also an issue because of traffic. Sometimes we don't want to go too far out because of the commute, but it's important for us to be around others. How are you continually learning and developing intellectually, spiritually, if that's a practice of yours? What are you doing in terms of like your career, building financial wellness, and then also the environment that you live in? So all of those things are important in terms of how you can practice taking care of yourself. So if I had a client, I would help them to figure out where are the areas where they feel like they're in alignment with their value life and where are they not, and how can they maybe reduce some of the time that they're spending in social media to feed into those other areas.
Got you. So essentially, they have to take meaningful actions and small steps to kind of build up these habits. And, kind of to touch on what you said, by doing these small things and having these small wins every day, that's going to start building up confidence. And that confidence is going to come from essentially you keeping the promises to yourself. Because I feel like this kind of goes on along with you. Feel like I'm very small goal oriented. So it's kind of like maybe I'll make a little weekly goals or monthly goals or yearly goals. And it's kind of like, you can go through a year and be like, man, I didn't even end up doing anything this year. But on your small wins, you're like, oh, I did that. And I did this and I did that. And it kind of just builds up a sense of, okay, well, I guess I'm not that crazy after all.
Yes, building that resiliency.
So to kind of pivot right now, I'm sure emotional intelligence plays a huge part in being successful or, building up these things in your life. How does improving your emotional intelligence, in your opinion, help people succeed in business and in their personal lives?
Yeah, it's very important for business because emotional intelligence is really like the keys to being successful in business, right? So when you have a better understanding of yourself and how you are engaging, how you can regulate yourself, it builds your ability to have empathy for others. It builds your ability to be able to effectively communicate and to be able to make decisions that aren't from, being a reactive place. And so emotional intelligence is really important to help people understand how they can effectively engage and scale up or increase their capacity to do their endeavors or whatever it is that they're hoping to achieve.
And what one skill, as far along as emotional intelligence, that maybe people can kind of develop today to improve in that area?
So research really points to mindfulness. The reason why they really talk about that is because it really gets you to slow down and be present. It really helps you to think about what's happening for me internally and then what's happening around me, and then how can I proceed, right? Again, non-judgmentally, not really being attached to the dynamics. And so one thing that people can do is really developing and increasing their awareness of how they can be mindful. And there's different ways you can do that, whether it's journaling, that you can be reflective, whether it's deep breathing, and there's different types of deep breathing that you can do, or a form of meditation. So really just having those moments where you're pausing and really reflecting on how you want to engage.
To kind of go off with it, do you think self-sabotage also plays a part in the emotional intelligence part? I mean, when you think about it when you're younger, as you're growing up. You do a lot of things because you are emotional in that time, whether you're sad or mad or happy, whatever it is. And it's kind of hard to always have a clear mind when you're in those states of mind. So do you think that has a huge part in what people struggle with as far as their personal growth, as far as self-sabotage?
Yeah, they also call that like self-fulfilled prophecies, right? Where you're kind of like creating what it is that you automatically think will happen. And so again, when you have this concept of mindfulness, it allows you to better improve your interpersonal relationships and working on conflict or having healthy boundaries with others. It helps you to be able to tolerate distress. And again, really think about what you're talking about in terms of self-sabotage, that emotional regulation, right? Regulating yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, so that you're making the best choices and best actions overall for you in the situation and others involved.
Got you. And that's kind of touches on the being self-aware about all these things.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Kind of off the rail here. Do you go over these things with yourself as far as how often do you go through these practices with yourself? Or just be like, okay, I need to do this, or I need to do that?
Yeah, well, like as you can hear, right, my voice is not the best because I'm under the weather. And so when I start noticing things like that, I really try to take inventory because is this just an actual cold that I'm getting because I was exposed to something? Is this my body response to maybe me being stressed or to maybe something that's going on? And what can I do to take care of myself? So I then, like I talked about with the clients, think about where are the areas where maybe I haven't really been pausing or, respectfully declining because, we can have YOLO, like we don't want to miss out on things or FOMO, I'm sorry. And so we, may over commit to different things and not really taking a moment to say, really, did I want to do that? Did I need to do that? And so I constantly am reflecting and having conversations with myself about where I want to be, even if it's just an environment, who I want to be in community with, and am I treating myself well? And I have my own support in terms of therapy. I think that that's something important for us as clinicians to have our own space as well. So I'm not just saying it to people because I have credentials. It's something that I actively practice myself.
Got you. And I'm sure these things took time for you to develop through all your years and your practices. If you could go back in time to speed this process up for yourself, what's one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Slow down. Everything happens for a reason.
I like that.
I think that for me, because I'm in the practice of social work, our schools and a lot of people really push us to get a license and having your own practice. And I think sometimes there's a devaluation of some of the other levels of care that I talked about, really doing that macro work because policy impacts all of us. Really thinking about how to be involved in the community and making sure that you are actively engaged and have a relationship before you just show up and say, hey, I'm here to help. And then also I would remind myself about like the power and the privilege that I have with all of the credentials and titles that I have, and really making sure that you see the client, you see the human, and not just a problem or, really just seeing whatever it is behind it, whether it's money or another opportunity for growth, making sure that you see that person. So just really helping myself to recognize what was really the foundation of social work and why I'm here.
I like that. I like that. This has been amazing. Where can people best find you and where can they kind of learn about your work and what you do?
Yes, so you can find me hopefully in a class.
Oh, you got your socials right there.
Yeah. Blossom and Souls Therapy. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and also a website, which is bewellinc.com, Blossom and Souls Therapy. And thank you for this opportunity. It was a pleasure to be able to share about myself and mental health as well.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go back and rewatch this because I need to hear it again and take it all down. I really appreciate your time and you sharing a little bit. I hope let's not wait so long to reconnect again.
Yes, hopefully next time I'll have a better voice. That way we can actually have more engagement.
Feel better. Thank you again.